Welcome to My Irish Radio, music and culture news, your connection to everything happening in the world of Irish music and culture. I'm Jamie Flanagan. Each episode will share the latest news from Ireland's vibrant music scene, from traditional and folk to rebel ballads, pub tunes, Celtic rock, and today's top Irish pop. We'll also bring you updates on festivals, cultural events, and people keeping Irish heritage alive around the world. And remember, My Irish Radio is more than just a station. It's your community, your soundtrack, your voice. You can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com and through the links in the podcast description below. Here's the best part. You can be part of it. Host your very own show on My Irish Radio. Choose your playlist, share your stories, make My Irish Radio your Irish Radio. Let's get into what's happening this week in Irish music and culture.
Imagine celebrating, one of the world's most famously alcohol-drenched holidays entirely sober.
Right.
And you're doing it inside a Ukrainian cultural center.
Yeah, that is definitely not the usual image.
Exactly. And while you're there, an Irish hip-hop artist drops a new beat right on your phone, and somehow an ancient language is trending on TikTok. Welcome to St. Patrick's Day in 2026.
It is a totally different landscape now.
It really is. Because, look, if your mental image of this holiday is still like a plastic neon green hat and a pint of beer dyed with artificial food coloring, you are missing out on one of the most fascinating cultural evolutions happening on the planet right now.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is incredibly easy to just fall back on that theme park version of heritage. Right?
A cartoon version.
Exactly. A caricature is predictable. It fits so neatly into a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
You buy the merchandise and, you don't have to really think about the living, breathing people behind the holiday itself.
Mm-hmm.
But when you actually look at the reality on the ground today, that static cartoon completely shatters.
Which is exactly why we are here today.
Glad to be here.
So, today is Monday, March 16th, 2026. We are on the absolute eve of St. Patrick's Day.
The big day.
The big day. And we have a brilliant stack of sources to guide us through what this culture actually looks like in the modern world for you today. We are pulling heavily from the St. Patrick's Day 2026 Irish Music and Culture Report, which is courtesy of My Irish Radio.
It's a fantastic, really comprehensive report.
It is. So
Yeah.
Our mission today, our goal for this deep dive, is to look past those tired cliches and discover how modern Irish identity is managing this incredible balancing act.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk.
It really is, because they are fiercely protecting their ancient roots while radically updating themselves for the future. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
I want you listening to picture an Ireland that is simultaneously fighting in the legal trenches to save century-old battlefields while actively, feeding its oldest traditions into artificial intelligence and social media algorithms.
I mean, on the surface, that sounds like a massive contradiction.
Yeah, totally.
You have preservation pulling hard in one direction and this hyper-modernization pulling in the exact opposite direction.
Right.
But as the My Irish Radio report reveals, when you really examine the mechanics of how this culture operates, it is an entirely cohesive strategy for survival.
Well, let's start with the baseline then. The absolute epicenter of the holiday, which is the St. Patrick's Festival 2026 in Dublin.
The main event.
Yeah. And the official theme chosen for this year is roots.
Mm-hmm.
So the report highlights a heavy emphasis on heritage, on local community, and on getting people together for very tangible in-person events, which initially sounds like a very traditional, almost defensive posture, doesn't it?
See, I would actually argue it is the exact opposite of a defensive posture.
Really? How so?
Well, in sociology, a focus on roots doesn't inherently mean you're looking inward or, building a wall around your culture to keep it pure.
Okay.
Think about what a root actually does biologically. It anchors the plant, yes, but its primary function is to reach out into the surrounding soil and pull in new nutrients.
Oh, wow. That's a great way to frame it.
Right. Establishing those deep roots sets the stage for how the holiday is evolving globally. When a culture is secure in its identity, it actually has the confidence to invite others in and adapt.
And that biological mechanism completely explains the first major surprise in this report.
Yeah, the sober events.
Exactly. We are looking at the 15th annual Sober St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
But get this, this specific event is taking place at the Ukrainian Institute of America.
Yeah.
The organizers describe it as family-friendly, entirely alcohol-free, and explicitly cross-cultural. They even feature a Ukrainian accent to the showcase.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, This event fundamentally rewrites the global stereotype of the holiday.
It really does.
For decades, the international perception of St. Patrick's Day has been overwhelmingly associated with excessive drinking.
Right, the green beer.
Exactly. The alcohol often completely overshadowed the actual heritage. So by hosting a sober event inside an American institution dedicated to Ukrainian culture, and actually integrating those Ukrainian elements into the showcase, you are seeing a modern Irish culture that prioritizes mindful celebration.
And global solidarity, really.
Yes, solidarity over caricatures.
You know, it reminds me of how open source software works.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, you have this core foundational code, right? The heritage, the gathering, the music.
Right.
But instead of locking that code away in a vault where it eventually just becomes obsolete, you open it up. You let developers strip out the bugs, which in this case might be that toxic drinking culture.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And then you allow global collaborators, like the Ukrainian community in this instance, to build new, healthy modifications on top of it. So you end up with a program that is entirely new and highly functional for the modern day, but it still runs on that original ancient code.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it, actually. It is a culture saying to the world, this is who we really are, and we stand with our global neighbors.
Yeah.
They are utilizing their platform, their most famous day of the entire year, to share the stage. It is empathy over caricature.
And that concept of utilizing an ancient platform to tell a modern story brings us perfectly to the soundtrack of 2026.
The music scene is just exploding right now.
It really is. Because just as the celebrations are blending the traditional with the new, the Irish music scene is experiencing that exact same push and pull dynamic.
Yeah, the spectrum of music detailed in the report is staggering. I mean, you have artists dedicating their entire lives to acoustic, centuries-old heritage right alongside musicians pushing purely digital, decentralized innovation.
Right. So to give you listening a sense of this, let's look at the traditional footprint right now. We have legendary acts touring massively.
The big names.
Exactly. Like the High Kings are playing New York. The Michigan Irish Music Festival has announced heavy hitters like Scythian and Altan. And Milwaukee Irish Fest has their lineup out.
Huge festival.
Yeah. The Celtic Tenors are wrapping up a North American tour. And the traditional band Teyada is celebrating a massive 25 years on the road.
Yeah.
And then you have Dervish, who are just an absolute staple of the genre. They just announced an upcoming album titled The Great Irish Songbook, Volume 2, Poets and Storytellers.
And that represents an enormous, well-funded infrastructure dedicated entirely to the preservation of traditional sounds.
Yeah.
Those bands are the stewards of the acoustic heritage.
But then the report pivots to the contemporary scene, and honestly, it feels like we've stepped through a portal into a different universe.
It really does.
We have the hip-hop artist Kojaki dropping a new track called Antihistamine, which the report notes is directly reflecting on current complex world events. The band HAVVK is releasing Bad Look from their upcoming fourth album, Time Will Kill. And if you look at influential tastemakers like the prominent Irish music blog Myallar9, their playlists are pushing acts like Brawny, Cello, and Soda Blonde.
It is a vibrant, almost chaotic musical landscape right now.
Totally.
You also have The Scratch touring the UK, and they're blending acoustic instruments with this intense, heavy energy.
Yeah, they're wild.
And the Journal of Music is highlighting performances by the Hard Rain Soloist Ensemble in Dublin, focusing on contemporary classical. Plus, they're pointing out a huge surge in new musician residencies.
And add to that a wave of new singles from artists like Sean Julian, Leah Rose, and even pure electronic tracks from the producer UWM.
Right.
But, okay, I have to stop and play devil's advocate here, because if I'm listening to this, I think I'd be genuinely confused.
Okay, why is that?
Well, Ticketmaster UK is currently highlighting a new folk band called The Labourers, right? So how does a traditional-leaning folk band like The Labourers share the same cultural DNA as an electronic producer like UWM or a modern hip-hop artist like Kojaki?
That's a really good question.
Right. When the sonic delivery is so drastically different, when one is literally a drum machine and the other is an acoustic guitar, how do we still categorize it all under the umbrella of Irish music?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the common thread tying all of these artists together is absolutely not the instrument.
Okay.
The core DNA of Irish music isn't a specific chord progression or, the presence of a fiddle. The core DNA is the storytelling.
The narrative element.
Precisely. Historically and presently, the culture's music is deeply narrative. Look at the examples you just gave.
Right.
Dervish explicitly titles their album Poets and Storytellers, directly acknowledging their role as chroniclers of history.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Meanwhile, Kojanka releases a hip-hop track to reflect on current world events. The sociological function of both artists is identical.
Oh.
They are observers documenting the human condition of their specific era. The traditional bodhran drum and the modern electronic beat are simply different delivery systems for the exact same narrative impulse.
That completely changes how you listen to it. I mean, the tool changes based on what generation you are born into, but the impulse to just stand up and tell the story of what is happening around you, that remains constant.
Exactly. And this brings us to one of the most critical updates in the entire report.
Okay, lay it on me.
If storytelling is the core DNA of the culture, what happens when the very act of storytelling is threatened by technology?
Right.
The report highlights a major industry shift here. Former Irish Minister Catherine Martin has just been appointed as head of policy for Ireland at the Ivors Academy.
And for those who might not know, the Ivors Academy is essentially the professional association, or like the guild, that fiercely champions and protects songwriters and composers.
Right, and her specific focus in this newly created role is going to be on the intersection of songwriting and artificial intelligence.
Man, that is a massive collision of worlds.
It really is.
You have one of the oldest, most human traditions on the island, the crafting of a song going head-to-head with generative AI.
Now, we are impartially reporting the facts of her appointment here, but it perfectly encapsulates the profound tension of 2026.
Absolutely.
You have a state-level political figure stepping into a role to navigate how you protect human heritage in the face of a technology that can instantly mimic the sound of a ballad, but lacks the lived human experience required to actually tell a story.
Because it hasn't lived anything.
Exactly. So it isn't about outright rejecting technology, but rather establishing policy to ensure that the human element of cultural creation isn't hollowed out by algorithms.
Which asks a really uncomfortable question, I think. How exactly do you protect history and culture in a world dominated by rapid, unprecedented technological change?
It's the defining question of our time.
Right, because we aren't just talking about music copyrights anymore.
Yeah.
The report extends this exact same battleground to the Irish language and to the physical land itself.
And the language component is particularly revealing regarding how modern Ireland is choosing to fight that battle.
Yeah, let's dive into that because the strategy here is brilliant.
You're listening to My Irish Music and Culture News, brought to you by My Irish Radio, streaming the best in Irish and Celtic music all day, every day. From classic jigs and reels to the latest Irish rock and pub favorites, we celebrate the sound of Ireland worldwide. Want to be more than a listener? Be a host. Share your love for the Irish music by hosting your own show on My Irish Radio. It's easy to get started. Just send us an email, myirishradio@gmail.com. Don't forget, you can listen 24/7 at myirishradio.com. Make My Irish Radio your Irish radio.
So, Conrad na Gaelge, which is an organization fundamentally dedicated to promoting and preserving the Irish language, they have formed a new official partnership with TikTok. And according to the My Irish Radio report, they're seeing a huge surge in the usage of Gaelge on the social media platform.
Here's a prime example of a culture refusing to be a museum piece.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I was trying to wrap my head around the strategy.
Okay.
If you have an ancient, endangered language, your first instinct might be to protect it, right? To formalize it in textbooks and quiet classrooms.
Ibitsi fei.
Exactly. Putting it on an app known for 15-second viral dances feels a bit like taking a priceless, fragile artifact from a museum and coding it into a chaotic virtual reality video game.
That's a vivid image.
Right. You are throwing something ancient into an environment built on fleeting, hyper-fast trends. So I have to ask, does gamifying an ancient language risk cheapening its historical weight? Or is meeting the youth exactly where they are inside their phone algorithms the absolute only way a language actually survives?
This raises an important question about the fundamental nature of heritage. Specifically, the difference between tangible and intangible heritage.
Okay. Unpack that.
Well, language is entirely intangible. It does not exist in a physical state.
Right.
If a language isn't spoken, if it isn't mutating and being used to gossip or joke or argue in daily communication, it becomes a dead language studied only in academic vacuums.
It becomes Latin.
Exactly. It becomes Latin.
Yeah.
By partnering with TikTok, Conrad na Gaelge understands the mechanics of modern communication. Social media algorithms don't care about geographic borders. They care about engagement. By pushing the language onto this platform, they're essentially creating a decentralized digital Gaeltacht, a digital region where the language is the primary currency. They aren't cheapening the language. They are giving it oxygen. They're removing the academic pressure and allowing it to become living slang again.
So for intangible heritage, survival means you have to digitize it. You have to force it into the modern current, even if that current is super chaotic.
Yes. However, the My Irish Radio report contrasts that digital fluidity with a deeply stubborn physical preservation campaign happening simultaneously.
Right, the Moore Street battlefield.
Exactly. The report outlines an ongoing, passionate societal campaign to save the historic 1916 Moore Street battlefield site in Dublin.
Yeah.
Specifically, it notes impartially that the 1916 Cultural Quarter Bill is currently moving forward through the legislative process to formally protect that exact physical location.
But wait, if we just establish that culture is moving on to TikTok and artists are dropping electronic tracks and the whole identity is going global and digital, why spend so much political capital and public energy fighting over a few physical streets and old bricks in Dublin?
Because tangible heritage anchors the intangible. The campaign to save Moore Street highlights a deep human need for physical context.
Okay.
You can digitize a language to save its syntax, but you cannot digitize the physical ground where the turning points of your history actually happen.
Right, it's not the same.
The spatial reality of the Moore Street site, the bricks, the layout of the streets where the 1916 events unfolded, holds a unique cultural weight that an algorithm simply cannot replicate.
I see what you mean. You can show a video of a historical site on a phone, but you can't stand inside a video and feel the scale of the history. The preservation of the bricks requires physical, legal intervention.
And that desire for physical engagement with a culture extends well beyond historic battlefields.
Oh.
Yeah, the report also highlights the Donegal Camino, which is announcing new routes for 2026.
The Camino being a physical trek where people are literally walking the landscape.
Exactly.
It is somatic learning. You are connecting with the terrain of the country through sheer physical effort.
Furthermore, you look at the visual arts sector. The Irish Museum of Modern Art, or IMA, is currently featuring installations that the report specifically describes as sensory and immersive.
So it's not just looking at a painting on a wall. You have to physically enter the space. You have to feel it. You have to engage your senses.
Right. If we synthesize all of these data points from the report, a very clear doctrine emerges.
Which is?
Cultural survival in 2026 is a highly coordinated two-front effort. It requires fiercely protecting the physical ground you walk on, whether that is the historic bricks of Moore Street or the rugged paths of the Donegal Camino, while simultaneously and fearlessly adapting the language you speak and the music you make to the digital age.
Man, that is an incredible blueprint for how any culture can navigate the 21st century.
It really is.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We started this deep dive talking about that plastic green hat, that static, unchanging cartoon version of St. Patrick's Day.
The cliche.
Exactly. And what this comprehensive report from My Irish Radio proves is that whether you are putting on green to celebrate tomorrow, or you are just someone trying to understand how human traditions survive in an era of rapid technological change, the main takeaway is undeniable. Irish identity in 2026 absolutely refuses to be a stagnant, predictable museum piece.
It actively and successfully resists caricature by embracing complexity.
It is a living, breathing, highly adaptable entity. Just think about the scope of what we've covered today.
Yeah, it's a lot.
This is a culture that possesses the emotional intelligence to blend Ukrainian solidarity with a sober celebration in New York.
Right.
It has a musical DNA strong enough to foster a traditional acoustic band celebrating 25 years on the road, and a modern hip-hop artist dropping tracks about complex global events on the exact same day.
Truly incredible.
And it is an identity that will pass legislation to fight for the physical bricks of an ancient battlefield while happily throwing its native ancient language into the trending algorithms of TikTok to ensure the youth keep speaking it.
It adapts or it fades, and the evidence overwhelmingly shows it is choosing to adapt.
Absolutely.
Which leaves us with a rather profound, perhaps slightly dizzying thought to consider as we wrap up.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Well, we've spent this time analyzing how fiercely this culture is fighting to balance its ancient traditional roots with modern technology navigating AI and songwriting, utilizing electronic beats to tell stories, and leveraging social media algorithms to save a language.
Yeah.
But if a culture's long-term survival depends entirely on adapting to its present time, What will traditional Irish culture look like a century from now?
Oh, wow.
Right. Will the youth of 2126 be staging passionate campaigns and passing cultural quarter bills to preserve the ancient traditional electronic AI beats and TikTok dances of today?
That is a wild thought.
When tomorrow's generation looks back at the timeline, will the very things we consider radical, chaotic updates right now be the cherished ancient roots they're fighting to protect from whatever technology comes next?
That's it for this episode of My Irish Radio, Music and Culture News. Thanks for joining us. And remember, you can hear the best in Irish and Celtic music 24 hours a day at myirishradio.com. If you ever dreamed of sharing your favorite tunes and stories, now's your chance. Become one of the hosts. Host your own show right here on My Irish Radio. Just send us an email. It's easy as that. myirishradio@gmail.com. Until next time, it's Jamie Flanagan. Keep the music playing and keep Ireland in your heart.